And with that note,
What's that sound?
nerdy news segment brought to you by nobody except Keith for that beautiful music that he provides with us or
Shout
for
out
us.
to Keith one time.
Black Widow. Black Widow. Black Widow. It has been 2 years since Marvel movies, Dane. A little over a year. Spider-Man, right? When did Spider-Man come out?
Far From Home. Wait, hold on. I'm drawing a blank here. I should remember because I went to this.
It came out the same year as Endgame, and Endgame came out in 2019.
Because it came out like 2 weeks after.
2020.
Right? Just like 2 weeks.
I think like a month.
Okay.
Anyway, Black Widow came out July 9th. Marvel Studios returned to the big screen. Directed by Kate Shortland, Scarlett Johansson, Florence Pugh, Rachel Weisz, David Harbour. Movie takes place between the events of Civil War and Infinity War. I wanted to say I did enjoy this movie, Dane. Mm-hmm. There were parts of the movie, and I talked about this with Karina, where Spoiler alert. Thank you. Spoiler alert. There were parts of the movie where I didn't understand why or how certain things happen, and I'll get to that in a second. But overall, man, I enjoyed the action. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed some of the gaps filled in from previous movies, like the Avengers, where Loki is talking to Black Widow about her red ledger,
murky red, dirty,
murky past, Dreykov's daughter, and we like, okay, what happened? Like, it filled in those gaps.
Yeah.
Of course, the post-credit scene where we see her sister Yelena Belova meets up with chick from Seinfeld. I can't even remember her real name. But basically going off of her appearance in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where it looks like it's setting up some sort of team. Could be the Thunderbolts, could be Dark Avengers. We don't know yet. But overall, I would say this movie, as much as we've seen with the Loki show and what we've seen with WandaVision, of course, those are more power magic kind of beings. It was good to see a grounded type of MCU movie similar to what we saw with Winter Soldier back in the day, the Captain America movies. But I will say it was a good send off for Scarlett Johansson if she doesn't return as Black Widow, which it doesn't seem like she will, man. But overall, I enjoyed it. I will talk about the gripes in a second, but what did you think of it?
I like the movie. Me and the wife, we enjoyed it thoroughly. No, we're disappointed because she should have gotten this. I mean, I understand the way that Marvel does things, the sequence, but it's been a gripe for me ever since they announced it. She should have got this movie. And whether or not they were concerned about whether it was going to perform or not, that's irrelevant. You got to take chances on the people that you invest in, and you invested in her, particularly in so many roles in the MCU. With that being said, I'm glad they gave her roses. She had a big hand, not only with, like you said, as an actor in the movie, but she's behind the scenes. She's credited as one of the, if I'm not mistaken, like executive producer or something like that. She had a big role, a big hand in what took place or what was happening in the movie, which is hella respect to her because that's long money. She's gonna get more money from that than she will, being casted in the particular role and playing in the movie itself. But it's just kind of dope, and it speaks to her range as not only as a creator, but also as a human being in this particular MCU. But if I could be real, I like the movie for two things. One, we finally got some more clarity upon Budapest, and with her and Clint have mentioned Budapest a number of times, and it's like, why do they keep bringing this up without like almost like they're teasing us? But it was kind of just a good callback, and it's one thing we got to credit, or I in particular, I credit Marvel a lot for the way that they provide these callbacks and the way that they misdirect with their trailers and movies and such. But to me, that was one of the most impressive things, just finally having that particular part of the story pay off. Second is just we can see their continuity. We're transitioning from one Black Widow to her successor. Of course, it might take us a while to get there, but we can already see that it is already being put in place. Of course, with the other widows, spoiler alert, of course, again, with the other widows being released from their control and captivity, there's endless possibilities on who could take the realm. And but I think signs are all pointing to her sister. So we'll see. Now back to these
One of
gripes
the
years. Oh, my bad. Go ahead, man. Do your thing.
before I get to the gripes, one thing I did enjoy, and I watched Endgame today before we started recording,
Oh,
and it kind of brought everything back into like a full closure moment. Her
okay.
sacrifice, the way she was acting in Endgame, you could kind of like assume like what we saw in Black Widow is her like, all right, I've done this. I already know I have these families that I didn't think I had, and
Mm-hmm.
I've had my purpose here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I can sacrifice my life for the greater good, kind of thing. And I felt like rewatching Endgame, like if you get a chance, just rewatch, even if it's not the whole thing, just rewatch her scenes, and it kind of like brings it some closure in a
Yeah.
sense.
Especially from the guilt that she's been harboring for a long time. Especially they showed it in Black Widow when she assumed that she, of course, she's admitted she's done a lot of a lot of dirty things, a lot of grimy things in her past. But the one thing that seems like it's been haunting her the most is possibly killing a little girl. But
Yeah.
turns out she didn't actually kill her, and although she was freed from that, she still has the guilt and suffer the consequences of her actions based on the way that person had to live their life under a severe state of mind control. So it was cool seeing her come to terms with that. But I think in game, she definitely was at peace with her life because of everything, the events that transpired from the movie that we just got
Correct.
2 years after she died.
Correct.
Crazy. It's crazy.
And
to these gripes.
To the gripes.
To the grapes.
You mentioned one of them, just the placement of the film, and it's not the film's fault, obviously.
No.
I feel like, obviously, the film would have served a better purpose if it was either in the spot Captain Marvel was in, which was in between Infinity War and Endgame, or directly after Civil War, chronologically in the story. I feel like it would have gave it more of a, I guess, impact, so to speak, which is not the film's fault.
No,
it's not a critique of the film. It's just the placement of the film. I felt like it would have made it more, gave it more of a impact in the overall MCU.
There's one of the critiques. One of the critiques of Marvel of the MCU. If you want to talk about anything Marvel does bad, it might just be the timing of their releases. That might be it. That just wasn't thought out properly.
The next gripe, it was parts of the film, bro. I know the MCU is the MCU. You're gonna see crazy stuff. As much as her jump from the sky was towards the end, she landed on her feet, bro. She landed on her feet. It was just different parts. It's like you know what's gonna happen because it's MCU. You know she's not gonna die. You know she's gonna do superhero stuff. That just kind of, I could get over that. The part that kind of made me feel like, okay, what happened there is towards the end. The family's all together. They're like, oh, we're family. You know, Scarlet is a Black Widow standing there, and literally the trucks, the Ross and them are coming to get her, and she's just standing there looking at them come, and then it just cuts and goes from her talking to Mason, with the blonde hair, and I'm like, how did she get out of that situation? Like Ross was literally right there.
Might have been
and
a
then
deleted
it just
scene.
Like flipped.
Some cut from the film, possibly.
I don't know, man. That part just it kind of it wasn't like terrible, but it's just like I didn't see. I wanted to see like, okay, did she get away? Oh, obviously she did, but like how? Like they were literally right there, and it just cuts to her with Mason getting the Quinjet and flying off. But I mean, it was just different parts of the film were just like didn't make sense to me. And then I don't know how I feel about Taskmaster. There were a few scenes, the fight scenes with Taskmaster were dope.
They were dope.
But I don't know if I like who Taskmaster was.
Too predictable? Too predictable?
Actually, I didn't predict that.
I did.
But
I was like, man, that girl
you
ain't
felt
dead.
like it was her?
Yeah, because if he survived, then surely enough, the little girl could. He probably will the girl to survive. I didn't know that it was going to be a mind control thing.
Yeah,
That was the furthest thing from my mind, but I just knew that the girl was going to be. I was like, man. And plus, the one thing that gave away for me, and this is like, it was the size of her arms. Her arms were skinny, like super skinny. When she
yeah, I didn't pay
was,
attention.
when she where I forgot what scene it was, but she walked by the camera. I was like, man, is that Kevin Durant in there in that costume or something? Because the arms are just toothpick like. And I was like, all right, that might be either just a super 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 tiny guy, or is it, it might be a woman. But my suspicions were they kept referencing to the little girl and the mistakes that she made. Okay, yeah, that's definitely her. Then the guilt.
Yeah,
There's no way for her to keep talking about the guilt and for it to just keep going like this and then eventually drop off. It had to be some sort of payoff with them mentioning the guilt and her redeeming herself. And sure enough,
yeah.
you know,
I thought Mason was gonna be Taskmaster, but throughout the film, I'm like, there's no way. Like, how is he here and Taskmaster's there? Like, I just
hmm,
felt like
hmm, hmm,
I think because his character was just like very scarce in the film. Like, you only saw him in a few things or few
hmm.
scenes, and so I thought because I have you ever seen that actor before? OT, his name is OT Fagbenle, but he
No.
plays in Handmaid's Tale, which Karina loves. But
Okay, no, I haven't seen
I
that.
just felt like he'd have a bigger part because he's like
He's gonna have a bigger
kind
part,
of
is what they're saying.
yeah,
They're teasing at least.
yeah. So right, and so it just goes back to one of those things where MCU like will lay something there and be like, all right, that's gonna be there. We're sowing the seeds now, but later it's gonna pay off. Like,
Mm,
I feel like Taskmaster is gonna come back, but I don't know in what
we'll
capacity.
see. I mean,
I think it's a villain that can come down the line.
so what I've seen, the criticism that I've been reading online about the Taskmaster is just the way that the origin story, the backstory, it wasn't fulfilling enough to a lot of people. And I was like, dude, this is the MCU. Like, we've seen plenty of times where
Them
villains come
switch it
back from
up.
reprisal roles. Like, there might be another variation of the Taskmaster. We've seen how the Flag Smashers, they arose because they were inspired by criminals and inspired
Yeah,
by other or anti-heroes. They were inspired by other anti-heroes amongst the world. So there could very well be another person that's been just so breathtaking and so what's the best way I can think of? So captivated by the Taskmaster that they, end up trying to be a copycat. So there's also
yeah.
a possibility of that, but I'm not gonna. You can't write off the particular portrayal or the particular origin story of this person until we see the very last of it, and there's no telling when that will be.